No.
Where were you born? When?
I was born in Ogden, Utah, a place called 5 Points. You come down Washington Boulevard, the road divides into 5 different roads. And there was a little house that sat right in the center of that. And that's where I was born. And they've torn that down, and it's a bank now in Ogden. And we moved from there up on the hill. We lived there for a couple of years. Then we moved to Cache Valley. My father bought a 40-acre farm in the mouth of Black Fork Canyon. And that's where I grew up as a boy. I had a collie dog. I had a real fast horse. Bicycle. Had the paper out up to the Holler Road. We moved there. When we moved there, the house only had 2 rooms upstairs. It had a kitchen and a front room, and then the basement was the bedrooms. And in order to go to the bed, you had to go outside and go down outside steps. The walls on the house in the winter was so cold, there was frost ½ inch thick on the insides of the walls. And Mother would put big rocks in the oven and heat them up, and we put them in the bottom of our beds. And we had so many blankets on us we couldn't hardly turn over at night because it was so cold. I can't believe how cold it was. Then down the road a few years, Dad bought an old store in Logan, moved it out and added it onto our house. Then we had 3 bedrooms upstairs, a bathroom, and a double-car garage, which really made it nice. And then we went on the farm. We raised all kinds of crops. We raised peas, beans, sugar beets, whole beans, corn, and potatoes, squash, raspberries, strawberries, just all kinds of vegetables, carrots. We had apple trees. Just a real productive farm. We lived there. I lived there till I was 19 years old, but when I was 14, one day I was milking my neighbor's cow, and I heard this car come in the driveway, and I thought, well, maybe they've come home and I won't have to do the chores tomorrow. Well, to my surprise, it was Ellen and her mother had came over to visit her cousin, but they didn't know that they was gone on vacation. Well, she gets out of the car, and I could hear her walking because the driveway was gravel. I could hear her coming out because the barn was just about 50 yards away from the house, corner of the house, and I could hear her footsteps in the gravel. And then there's real pretty little girl stuck her head around the corner of the barn. In fact, I get the picture in our bedroom. We had a picture taken on our 50th wedding anniversary of where we met. Anyway, she says, stuck her head around the corner and says, "Boo" to me. And I said, "Boo" back. And I think I fell in love with her the first time I ever seen her. Well, we went. I watched for this brown car to be in the driveway, and every time I do, I'd ride my bike back and forth with the horse so that she could see me, you know. And then when we got into school, we both went to South Cache High, and I was 1 year ahead of her in school because she was so small that her mother kept her back because she was so tiny, so she kept her home, kept her back 1 grade. She's only, her birthday's the 4th of August, mine's the 4th of June, but she was still a whole year behind me in school. So I graduated in '53, the year of '53, and she graduated in '54. 2 weeks before we were going to get married, she had the measles. We didn't think she was going to make it because we wanted to get married on my birthday, which was the 4th of June. But anyway, she made it. She got better. She had a blessing and she got better. And we were married on my birthday on the 4th of June, 1954. We lived in a little house out on up the Holler Road. There was a little place that we stayed. And our first apartment, after that, we moved to Logan. And I got a job working for Old Carlson. And it's the gas station right across the street from the high school, across the street from the cemetery. It's called the Grizz Station. And I was making $1.25 an hour. And our apartment was over on the other corner, and it was a great big humongous house. Our rent was $35 a month. That included heat, lights, and water. And this guy that I worked for, named Old Carlson, him and another guy that both worked there, they both smoked one cigarette off the other one. But anyway, he wanted me to put the boxing gloves on him. I was 19 years old. When I was 19, I weighed 185 pounds, and I was as solid as a rock. I could outrun him then. But anyway, we lived on this 40-acre farm, and I just ran everywhere with that dog, you know, just over 40 acres. I mean, I could run like a deer. In fact, there wasn't a kid in my high school class that could beat me in the run. I never went out for track or anything, but when we go out for recess and we'd run around the track, I was always ahead of everybody. Anyway, getting back to the horse, the cow, and the horse, and the dog, and all the farm animals we had. Ellen had this thing of coming over in this little brown car, and I always made sure that I rode the horse back and forth fast in front of her, or else my bike. But then when we got into high school, we started dating in high school. We would become good friends out there. But then when we got into high school, we dated all through high school. And then we got married on my 19th birthday on the 4th of June, 1954. And that's when we moved to Logan. And I was working for this Lowell Carlson. And he wanted me to put the boxing gloves on it. No, I won't. He says, well, if you don't, I'm going to fire you. And so finally I put them on, and we went out onto the washroom floor, and we were sparring around a little bit. And he swung at me, and I ducked, and I clobbered him on the chin with the right, hit him just as hard as I could hit him, and I knocked him colder than a wedge. He just flattened him right on the floor. His hat went a-flying, and I didn't know he was bald until then. He always wore a hat, and he just had the sideburns, you know. Well, anyway, we had to throw some water on him to get him to wake up, because I knocked him colder than a wedge. He got up and went in his office, wrote out my check, and fired me. I said, I ought to knock you out on your so-and-so again. And so anyway, right after that, it was a pretty good deal, because I got a better job. I got a job at Dean C. Pack's, which was just 2 blocks north of where we was living. Dean C. Pack was a Chrysler Dodge dealership, which used to be Logan City's main offices until they bought the old Sears building on Main Street. The old, not Sears, it was J.C. Penney store. Anyway, when I moved over to Dean C. Pack, I was making $2.25 an hour, so I got $1 an hour raise in pay. So I doubled my wages actually, and had a better job. But anyway, then I went from there to Wilson Motor. Worked for Wilson Motor 1954, 55, when those cute little Thunderbirds come out, you know, 54 and 5 Thunderbird cars. And then from there, I got a job working for W.L. White Pipe Company in Ogden. Worked there for a little while until I got on this construction job putting in the landfill across the Great Salt Lake. You know, they replaced the old wooden trestle with a landfill. In other words, they just hauled rocks and dirt out there until they filled the lake up, and then they built a road on top of it, and then put the railroad tracks on it. Well, anyway, it took them about almost 7 years to do it. Well, in the first year that I was working there, your mom, was just about 4 or 5 months old. And I worked this Sunday morning, came into town I was coming home that Sunday night, because the next morning my brother was going to tow a trailer house out there that we had bought, so that Mom and your mother could be with me. Well, on the way in, I got in this head-on collision with this guy who was going out. He was a drunk. He would hit head-on on the top of a hill on a dirt road. they thought when the farmer that came along, there's two farmers come along in this car, a guy on a motorcycle that I had just passed, Harley Davidson coming out. Anyway, they helped the other guy first because they thought I was dead. I was laying on my shoulders, and they looked like I was dead, blood coming out of my mouth. Well, anyway, then they went back over, and I had moved, and so I came to, and I got up, and they tried to put me in the car. They said I was just throwing everybody around. I was in shock, but I was just throwing everybody around, you know. This eye was completely gouged out, hanging down on my cheek. All my top teeth were knocked out, all but 8 of my bottom ones. My mouth was ripped up into my nose in 3 places. 135 stitches in my face. Anyway, they kept my job out there for me. About a month and a half later, I stopped by there, and I picked up half a dozen of my teeth off the side of the road from the wreck. My teeth were laying in the gravel there. Anyway, I worked out there until, I guess I worked out there about 3 years or so. And then I got a job at Thiaco, on a Thiaco. And about every 3 to 6 months we get laid off. Just before Christmas or just for Thanksgiving or just for a holiday, they'd lay you off so that they wouldn't have to pay you a bonus or something. Anyway, I was making $550 a month at Thiaco. Well, an opening came to be a fireman at Logan City. And by this time I was almost 29 years old. I worked construction and different things until I was 29 years old. Your mom, Nancy, was born. Julie was born. We had moved from out there into Corinne. Now, there's a cool thing happened to me 2 Saturdays ago. I was assigned as a substitute, or I mean as a escort for a missionary that was going to go on a mission. His name was Nicholas DeVere Wells. I says, Nicholas DeVere Wells, do you by chance know a Wells or a DeVere Wells from Corinne? And this boy's father said, yeah. He says, that's my dad. And I says, well, do you know a Dwayne Wells? And he says, yeah. He says, that's my grandpa. Well, his grandpa was the one that pulled me out of that car. Now this was just 2 weeks ago. This happened up in the temple. I was this boy's escort going on a mission. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
So that goes back almost 50 years ago that happened when I was in this wreck. But anyway, I worked on that job, and then we bought a home in Corinne. We sold that home, and then we bought a home in Hyde Park. No, we bought a home in Logan. Then we moved to Hyde Park, and then when we moved from Hyde Park to this house, and we've been here 43 years, 44 years this fall.
When did you start on the...
I started at the fire station when I was 29 years on the 15th of April, April or May, seemed like it was about 1960, something like that. And I worked at the fire station for almost 27 years, retired from the fire station, just was out of the fire station about 6 months, and then we was called on a mission at the employment center for 2 years. We worked there until I was we worked at the fire station. I worked there until I retired. Fire hall. Oh, and then we was on this mission for 2 years, and then 2 weeks before that ended, we got the job at the girls' camp. And after our mission ended at the girls' camp, at the employment center, we was called up to the temple. 2 weeks later, President Kidd was our state president. He was called us on that mission, and he called us up to the temple because he was first announced in the temple presidency. So we started our mission at the temple the 5th of February, 1985, and we're in our 16th year up there now. And we've been working in the temple on every for starting 16th year. We're in our 16th year. We ran the girls' camp for 10 years. Talk about some of the cars that I've owned. I started out with a 36 Play, which was going up to Jerry McBride's place, school books one day, and this woman run a stop sign, and I hit her broadside. And the son was standing on the running board, broke both his legs. I swore I'd never drive a car again as long as I lived. Then we got a little 34 DeSoto and a 34 Dodge. Then I had a 36 41 Willys American car. Then I had a 36 Plymouth, and that's what I had when we got married. And from then on, there's about 9 cars between that and cars and 3 different trailers, 3 motorboats. Your dad's got the old last Chris Craft. Is it about gone?
Minutes or so.
Anyway, I've had 3 trailers and 2 motorhomes and about 19 cars and 4 or 5 pickups. We've John and I have known each other now for almost over 60 years. We've been sweethearts ever since we were 16. So long time to know each other. And he's gonna.
Is that Grandpa?
But anyway, that's just the things that we've done.
Get more of it too.
I have first skate. I love to camp. I have more people out of water down in your. All my kids, all in it. Your water ski, motorcycle, help. Anyway, Walter used to be my shadow when I was dating your mother. That's the last few years. You know, that's the way it is. He's going to break one of those animals. Anyway, it's part of my life. It's been, I've told 3 cars, been in 3 cars total that I should have been killed in. I'm still there. 3 cars. An Oldsmobile, a minivan,
Was it that you got in a really bad accident?
yeah, that's about took me out. I got rear-ended out of the course side. And then we got that we got over in that car that hit us, that truck 2 seconds sooner. And see, Chris, Kennedy only so that's been anyway.
Okay.
Grandpa.
We'll stop.
Logan City Farm, and I started when I was 28 years old. I worked there for 27 years. Some of the experiences I had was on the ambulance and different fire trucks that we drove. But one day there was a man that was going up around past the temple, and he was going too fast, and he went off the road down onto the road that comes up off the island. And when we went up on the ambulance, we went up the canyon road, and I drove up the hill, and I stopped the ambulance facing up the hill, and the fireman that was with me took the cot out, set it down, let go of it. And the cot took off down the hill, and there was a policeman standing there, and it knocked him out. It knocked him off his feet onto the cot, and he went screaming down off the hill, clear out onto the island, screaming all the way. So if I could have had that on candid camera, I probably would have won a $10,000 reward or whatever. But we finally got the cot back and took the guy to the hospital, and he was okay. There was another day that I was driving the ladder truck to a fire, and I came back from the fire and swung around, and the alarm room operator opened the wrong door. I just pulled around and seen the door that was open, so I backed in. Of course, you can't see because the ladder truck is 45 feet long, and it's just a little square hole in the wall back there, and it's black, you know. Well, I went back the ladder truck in, and there was a new, well, one of the older fire trucks is the old GMC truck, and it had a big, huge siren sitting on just right above the hood. Well, the ladder truck came back, and it hit that siren, cleaned it right off, and shoved it right through the windshield of the old fire truck. And needless to say, my captain wasn't too happy with me, so he grounded me from driving the ladder truck for a few days. We had a fireman that was real good at fixing things like that, body and fender, and man, and he saved my bacon. He fixed it up for me, and so all we had to do was weld a new mount for the siren, and we got it put back on. But there was times like that happened all the time. I wasn't the only one that backed a fire truck into another fire truck. There was several other guys that did. But one day we was over in the old fire station, and every morning we go through and check all the equipment, make sure everything's okay, they're full of gas, and they're clean and everything. And there was about 6 firemen that had been standing just right in front of this old number 4 fire truck. It was a big Ford truck, and I told the fire chief, his name was Albert Allen at the time, I went and got him and brought him out, and I said, this truck's got a lot of play in the steering wheel. And we turned the steering wheel, and you could see the thing, all the play in the steering wheel itself, you know. And he says, well, sometimes with power steering, they have a little bit of play until you start it, and then it takes it out. He says, start it. And so I reached in, had the door open, I reached in and hit the key, started it, it fired right up. Of course, the last fireman that drove it had left it in gear, and the truck just made a big lunge. And the second lunge, it hit the door, and it took the door right out the truck went right through the door. Big old wooden door. Oh, what a horrible sound. Broke all the windows out of it, pushed it right out of the rollers that it was on. And I managed to get back in and get the truck shut off before it ran out into the road and oncoming traffic. And boy, I didn't live that one down for a while, but if the fire chief hadn't have been standing right beside of me there, I probably would have got fired. But he was right there and seen what happened, so I didn't have to tell anybody, or I didn't have to tell him. But I managed to get out of that one okay. But so anyway, that's just some of the fun things we done up there, and on some of the accidents that we went on. Went on some pretty nasty ones. We went on one time when there's a guy by the name of Dwayne Jensen was riding his motorcycle to Bear Lake, and he got up on top. As you go over top the summit down the other side, there's a big turn at the bottom of the hill, and he was laying his motorcycle into his going. Guess he must be almost late for work or something over there, but as he started into the turn, there was a car coming the other way, so he had to straighten his motorcycle up. He had to straighten the motorcycle up to miss the car, and he ran into off into the cliff on the side, and it just tore him up pretty bad. I could have stuck all four of my knuckles in the side of his head. The fireman that was with me was Dean Bench, and we was in the old '56 Cadillac, big red one, ambulance, and the guy would throw up, and then the fireman would throw up. The guy, and then the fireman would throw up. I shut the windows between it because it was about making me throw up, and I was driving down the canyon in the hospital. And so when we got back to the fire station, we just opened the door and we got the fire hose and washed it out. The guy is still alive. He's married and got, 4 or 5 children. He lives over in about 2 blocks from where we live right now. But he has a real bad speech impairment because it damaged part of the brain of his speaking. But he's still alive and kicking. And just little things like that all the time happen to us. So being a fireman is a good job, has a good retirement, has a lot of good benefits. So that's the way it is. I've enjoyed it. I've been retired for 23 years now. So that's that.
Thank you.